Welcome to this retrospective slash review for the video game I just got finished playing, Bonanza Brothers, which I'm going to have scrolling along in the background here as I just give you my thoughts on the game. And, well, I kind of had to think a little bit about this game. And, I try to, put my time played on a website, howlongtobeat.com. And when you go to that website, you can see kind of roughly what the rough sentiment is for the majority of people who play the game. And overwhelmingly, the majority of people who play the game rated it at about a 70%. So I was trying to think to myself, man, am I just being a little hard on this game? But you know what? I'm going to stick with how I feel about the game because at the end of the day, I mean, this is a below average game. It truly is. Um, and it's part of the Mega Drive Genesis Classics collection. And for the love of me, I don't understand why this game would be considered a classic. It does have catchy music. I mean, the music is pretty catchy. I'll give it that for sure. But of all the Genesis games I played, which is not a huge amount, granted, but of all the Genesis games I played, the graphics in this are just, well, they're not very good. I mean, you can see just here watching the demo, it's like, okay, I don't need the greatest, flashiest graphics, or even saying something like, the graphics are good for a Genesis, because these graphics aren't good for a Genesis. I mean, even launch title games that came out in 1989, about a year and a half, or two, between a year and a half and 2 years before this one, looked far better than this game does. It's like they didn't even bother putting forth any effort, and maybe they're like, "Oh, it's a quirky art style." Well, I guess in my opinion, it's not really quirky so much as lazy. I just don't like the art style in the game, but that's a personal preference. I mean, maybe you do like the quirky art style, and maybe that's perfectly fine for you. It just seems like the Genesis itself could do so much better in the graphical department. It's just like they didn't even try. Um, but then the other thing is, it's like the controls are clunky. It's got very clunky controls, and I mean, other types of games I played on the Genesis, at least the controls kind of had this tight feeling to them or something. I'm not saying this game felt slippery. It just felt clunky, and that's just not a very good aspect from how it controls as well. I mean, I do kind of like the idea. Okay, you got 3 minutes, get in, grab all the loot, and get out. That's kind of neat. But at the end of the day, yeah, I had a little bit of a difficulty adjusting to the play style of the game and just its quirks and whatnot. But I adjusted very quickly, and really, I just beat this, in probably about an hour or so after I got past the learning curve. This is not a difficult game either. So I mean, it's not a difficult or even challenging video game. I mean, I guess you can put it on hard difficulty and keep it at 3 lives if you want to really give yourself a challenge. And if I had done that, yeah, sure, that would have definitely made it more challenging. But at the end of the day, the gameplay isn't really good enough to warrant me trying to give myself that challenge. And playing on the with the emulator so that I could play on retroachievements.org so I could get achievements. There is a whole nother set of achievements for playing it on hard mode. And I don't know if I even like the game enough to even bother playing with it on that. Um, Trying to think here. There's something else I can talk about. Um, I would say one thing I won't criticize the game for is the whole flickering effect. I don't know if that was an aspect of the emulator rather than the original game. So maybe on actual Genesis hardware, when you got lost one of your lives and you could not see yourself, sometimes it worked better with the Pico Drive emulator than it did with the Genesis Plus GX emulator, but it still didn't work great. Um, Half the time I would get knocked out and I couldn't see myself, or I'd start the level and I didn't know where I was because I guess they had a little flickering effect going on. But I'm not going to knock the game for that because it may not be the game. It could have been the emulators. But if you're playing this with an emulator, that is something to keep in mind. The fact that it's sometimes that flickering effect or the flashing get to the exit thing, it really distracts from the game, and I'm not a big fan of that either. So I guess keep it pretty short, much like the game itself. At the end of the day, I'd probably give this one, 2.5 out of 5 stars or a 50% rating. It's just not a great game. Um, I guess for the price that you can get it for on Steam, for less than $1, it's not bad. And if you buy the entire Classics collection, you're going to get it anyway. But it's just kind of there. I'm not going to say it's the worst Genesis game I played from that collection because that honor still belongs to Super Thunderblade. That game was, infinitely much more frustrating than this one. Um, this game, it's a little bit frustrating, but I mean, it's not so much the fact that it's frustrating. It's just like there's not a lot of challenge there. Seriously under powered as far as graphics are concerned, and really about the only positive I can think of for the game is that it's got some pretty catchy music. But anyway, that's pretty much my thoughts on this game. It's definitely not something I would put high on your list of playing on the Genesis. It definitely wouldn't be one of the first things. I'm just in this weird phase now where I want to play every game I have on my Genesis collection that starts with the letter B. Well, now I've done it, and I ended it with the worst of the B games. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.